Welcome to Slash Forward. In this horror movie recap, we're going to settle in and begin unraveling an epic tale of the zombie apocalypse with the 2013 Brad Pitt helmed World War Z. Set at the outset of the apocalypse and spanning the entire globe, this film seeks to provide a broad and detailed view of how a small team of problem solvers seek to identify the source of the disease and a solution to its virality. That seems like a lot to cover in 2 hours. God damn! Well, it is based on a book, so that probably means they had a hard time cutting scenes due to an insistence upon staying true to the source material. So at least we got that going for us. Be sure to leave a comment expressing whether you were okay with or disappointed by the direction they took with World War Z. Let's get to it. We open on stylized scenes of daily life, with voiceover news reporting indicating signs of trouble on the horizon. As the reports turn increasingly negative, the imagery becomes increasingly ominous, eventually dumping us out into the traditional suburban home life of former UN investigator Gerry, who spends his days now frying up cakes and taking in the morning news about the institution of martial law somewhere. Probably no big deal. But you just know that deep down, as the drudgery continues, the excitement of his former life calls out to him. And finally, on this fateful day, something comes to break the monotony. There's an emergency of some type unfolding ahead, and it begs for his expertise. So when a truck clears a path for him, he doesn't hesitate for even a moment. But since he doesn't trust Karen to manage the interior of the car while he focuses on driving, he ends up ping-ponging them around the intersection. The family emerges into a world in stark contrast to the one they woke up in that morning. It's full of noise and confusion and occasionally just a hint of cannibalism. Gerry directs his family to a nearby RV whilst also gathering information about viral load and infection timing with his eyes, to be stowed away for later in his most powerful of brains. He's able to gun it through the crowd, breaking free at the expense of only 3 to 4 pedestrians, allowing them to head for the open road while the city burns behind them. Unfortunately, Rachel is so extra, and she starts having an asthma attack after they left her inhaler in the car. So the new plan is to head to a nearby pharmacy. Connie searches their new rolling home and retrieves a long gun for Daddy, while he confers with his connections at the UN. Thierry intends to helicopter him to safety, but this comes with a price.
I'll need you. I need you back.
He's going to have to delve into the thick of it. They end up in New Jersey scrounging for food and supplies. The customer service is a bit lacking, but the pharmacist is very new, and he is able to get them what they need. Connie then rolls out of an aisle, indicating danger beyond. Gerry turns a corner to find out the boys are already wilding out. In pursuit of his family's safety, a gunfight breaks out. Gerry's success here mostly relies on his opponent's poor aim. And then, as he willingly prepares to get cuffed by authority, he discovers that the rules no longer apply. When they get back out, the RV is gone, so he calls Thierry, who confirms they will swoop in to pick him up the next morning from the top of a nearby apartment complex. But will they make it? The runtime suggests they will. The family takes a romantic road flare-lit jaunt up the stairs, eventually finding safe haven in apartment 715. As they settle in, Gerry finds an electronic device that he reconfigures into some sort of communications funnel that feeds them emergency broadcast information that advises them to do exactly what they're currently doing. The next time he's awake, he confirms that in his experience with dangerous places, the survivors tend to be those who keep moving, so he invites the family to join him on the helicopter, but the offer is declined. When it's time to go, Gerry upgrades his equipment with a bayonet and an issue of Vanity Fair, and then they forge onward, making their way toward the roof.
I'm scared.
No shit, Connie. Sorry, it's really a tense situation. Even more so when they're found and are required to run the remaining distance to the roof, only pausing here and there to really soak in the visual of Daddy pulverizing brain pans. In his attempt to secure his family's safety, Gerry almost doesn't make it, but Tommy is a crack shot and has chosen to make his own way in life. Having swallowed the enemy's blood, Gerry waits out the infection with a failsafe, but the change never comes. Once confirmed, Gerry holds the line until the gun boys can ready their pew-pews, and when he lets loose, Tommy's papa is the first one out the door. They all make it safely onto the helicopter and take a harrowing trip through the burning city to a carrier where they land, and Terry and Gerry hug it out like brothers. They're shown their modest adjust accommodations before Gerry is taken for a debriefing. Most major cities are absolutely shredded, and the executive hierarchy of our government has been decimated. This quick-acting virus has spread worldwide, with nowhere to evacuate anyone to. Luckily, they've managed to collect the best virologists in the hope of finding a solution. What they need is to locate the source of the transfer and someone to lead them through dangerous areas. This, of course, is a prime job for the UN's most fabulous investigator of various things. Gerry resists at first, but in this new world of singular focus, anyone not helping find a solution is considered non-essential. And non-essentials, he's reminded, belong on the mainland. Gerry breaks the bad news to Karen, but they have matching satellite phones and he promises to call her once a day to check in while he's gone. He then says his tender farewells before taking off in a supply vessel. Along the way, he imparts upon the young doctor the wisdom of staying focused on the SEALs and doing whatever they do. The doctor then imparts his own wisdom by mythologizing Mother Nature, and it really gets his pants moist. When they arrive in South Korea, the base is dark, but they have no fuel and have to land. After touching down, they venture out carefully and pause for any sound or movement. Once noticed, things begin to pop off fairly quickly, and this brilliant mind is soon spilled all over the tarmac, and right before reinforcements arrive to escort the convoy into the safe and cozy military outpost. As everyone settles, Gerry shares what news he can from home and confirms that they are there pursuant to a memo that went out wherein the first instance of the term zombie was used. They show him what remains of the medical bay and confirm transmission occurs via bite, and that headshot is the best way to put them down. The only other thing they know is that their doctor came in contact with a nearby village and brought it back. Beyond that, self-preservation ultimately triumphed over document preservation, leaving them all holding their dicks. One soldier was able to inflict a lot of damage because the infected seemed to ignore him for some reason. Gerry then meets a colorful CIA agent who notes that before everything went dark, his sources indicated Israel was doing pretty well because they just happened to finish building a wall around Jerusalem right before the outbreak. So that's likely where they'd want to go next. Gerry then does his nightly call, but the reception is too bad to carry a conversation. And anyway, they're soon cycling out, probably ignoring the rules of the road to enact the refueling plan. Unfortunately for their attempts at stealth, Karen was not satisfied with where they left things, and Gerry didn't silence his phone. So she casually wakes the dead, putting them all in grave danger. Now they really have to start pedaling and do the best they can to lay down some cover fire to give time to finish fueling up. It also becomes incumbent upon Gerry to try not to be worthless, so he can ensure their sacrifice has some sort of grand payoff. And just like that, Gerry gets his turn at being the most important man in the world. In the air, he's able to connect with Karen and is hesitant to inform her of the role she played in the deaths of multiple soldiers. Luckily, he's saved from this by a huge explosion nearby that cuts off communications. And before you know it, they're touching down again, this time in Jerusalem, and getting shuttled through quarantine, which is functioning like a well-oiled machine. Gerry learns that their proactiveness comes from intercepting an Indian communique indicating they were fighting the undead. Due to prior failures of foresight, they developed a methodology for managing risk wherein, if leadership unanimously agrees on something, it's up to the final authority to pursue an investigation under the assumption that all the others are wrong. Hence, ya boy took the threat seriously, found it to be true, and so they constructed a wall. Now they're all safe and cozy behind their giant zombie barricades. Unfortunately, the grateful refugees pray too loudly, attracting the attention of the horde. This results in them inadvertently counteracting the wall with a cadaver pillar of their own making. Once they crest, they throw themselves upon the crowd, hoping to share their pestilence. As soon as one of them makes it across the line, all hell breaks loose. Gerry's ushered through the pandemonium, and as he makes his way along, he uses his powers of perception to try to appreciate the little things, like the individual instances of people being completely ignored by the infected. Their journey takes some time, with bodies dropping from all over, and everyone doing their dang best. The final few of the group are eventually cornered, but manage to hold their position by firing into the crowd and popping off a couple of bangers. At the end, they have a few moments of quiet, which is punctuated by Jer doing his part to help his new friend avoid the spreading infection. I'm sure she'll thank him for that someday. Luckily, they arrive just in time to be saved by the rescue chopper, which swoops right into Gerry's pilot pal then skedaddles with an empty cargo bay, like a true dirtbag, forcing them to commandeer a passenger airliner. The plane manages to take off as the infected pour onto the runway, and the calm washes over the passengers as they reach altitude, thankful that they escaped the destruction of the city below. When they have the time to address personal matters, Gerry begins the arduous process of cleansing and redressing Sagan's wound. He then is able to leverage his powerful mind to piece together thoughts of all the individuals he's witnessed being ignored by the snappers. Re-energized by his eureka moment, he calls his boo so he can talk to his other boo to request he seek out a disease research center that's near an airport. He then connects Terry with the pilot to explain the situation. The pilot returns the phone dead, but also confirms that they're now heading to Cardiff and begin their descent. Unfortunately, someone had been hiding their bite marks and begins spreading all over business class. Since they're basically done for, the others try to protect themselves by quietly stacking as much luggage as they can to cram the doorways. This can't hold them for long, and they soon find themselves with a plane to Busan situation going down, with few options available other than in terms of how to die. Gerry has a light bulb moment, testing the pilots on how much they remember from flight school. They manage to maintain control of the bird and crest a nearby mountaintop, then coasting over a forest and just kiss the place beyond the pines. Gerry wakes up alone, completely ignored by catastrophe again, other than the aluminum shard now perforating his kidney. Zegan does return to him and they take refuge in the suburbs of the English countryside, eventually emerging on the other side and across the property line of the WHO research facility where they collapse after seeking entry. Meanwhile, news makes it back to the carrier that the plane is now MIA, which is related to Karen in the form of delivering her orders to pack up her shit and evacuate to the mainland. A real kick in the nads for everyone involved. Gerry wakes up 3 days later strapped to a table, one step further from realizing his cyborg fantasies. A very guarded conversation ensues in which he convinces them to use the phone. They're able to reach Terry, who provides the necessary bona fides to instill trust. After he gets some fresh clothes on and learns about his family being jettisoned to Nova Scotia, he gets to work to try to make something of this bad situation. He inquires about any deadly but curable diseases they may have lying about. They inform him that they've already tried biological warfare against the deceased. But twist, he's talking about injecting it into themselves. His hunch is that the infected are instinctively looking to spread their payload via a healthy and robust host, thus passing over the sick and infirm. Luckily, they have a whole vault full of nasty little concoctions. They just all happen to be located in B-Wing, where Dr. Spellman infected himself and turned the whole place into a shopping mall. But it's gotta get done, so an away team gets strapped up and armed before slipping quietly into the air bridge. They find the place in quite a state, with food waste just everywhere. They venture deep into the lab, minding the glass and showing that they've played Metal Gear Solid once or twice. Despite the undead's intermittent utterances, a creaking door really catches their ears and piques their interest. Then, a full-on crowbar bump sets into motion a steady stream of freakos. Gerry leads them away and only pauses here and there to take care of those he must in order to continue making forward progress. The others make it to their destination but are horrified to find Vault 139 unreachable, so they rush out of there with a whole group of nasties trailing behind, leading to a real will they won't they conundrum as regards opening the door. But they will, both open and just barely make it out. This leaves Gerry all alone with an alluringly vacant Vault 139. It instinctually opens itself upon Brad Pitt's approach, as do we all. He's provided the passcode via quick phone call, granting access to the inner sanctum. Inside, he's like a kid in a candy store that's full of hazardous biological material. He fills a tin with all the vials he can fit, but then turns to discover that his exit is now blocked. So, similar to choosing the Holy Grail, he crosses his fingers and prepares to let her rip with 300 cc's of pure TB. After waiting a spell, when he really feels the tuberculosis, he puts his money where his mouth is and tests his hypothesis. He takes a quick 3 count before letting the door fly, and he discovers that old Nibbles over here is completely disinterested in his now impure blood. After creating a noise diversion, he strides on out of there like an absolute boss. Once he's back, he gets his antidote and then makes the trip to Nova Scotia, the first leg in the long journey back toward rebuilding. The starting point comes from creating and distributing a vaccine that gives the impression of illness to the undead, making the inoculated essentially invisible. Such a flash of ingenuity and charity, and only possible in a world where everyone ignores Bill Gates. After that, it's just a matter of holding the line and cleansing the landscape of the remaining scourge. We get a little hint of what that would look like if the movie series had continued. It was a pretty decent zombie movie with a few novel ideas contained therein. Obviously, the main defect is in not following the book. Not that the book is some rich, detailed tapestry of storytelling, but in that it specifically details individual conflicts within the broader war and focuses on world building. You can't really make a movie like that, whose sole intent is to potentially set up a series of other movies, when you anchor the film on a character played by a top 3 A-list celebrity. So that's too bad. But also, the movie rights were obtained by Brad Pitt, and the movie was produced by his production company. So he can basically do whatever he wants. Now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video, and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. Before we go, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my donors, memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. Any donation unlocks a growing collection of uncensored movie recaps. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.